Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Egg in my Crocs, and I figured that Star Wars is something that a lot of people like, something that I'm very passionate about, so I want to sort of bring it to the channel. I know it's something that I haven't really talked about on the channel ever yet, but I figured a great way to do that was to just talk about the original trilogy in a video. This video isn't going to be too long, not that extensive, anything like that. I'm just going to be talking about my opinions on the original trilogy. It's not very controversial. It's not like something that I'm gonna get a lot of hate for or anything like that. So just figured I'd give my take on it. If it's your first time here, then don't forget to subscribe. Watch the other videos. There's gonna be more Star Wars videos to come, Marvel videos, stuff like that. Um, so let's just jump right into it. And I'm gonna talk about why the original trilogy is actually my favorite trilogy in the Star Wars universe, more so than the prequels or the sequels. I know that a lot of people like the prequels more, and I mean, not as many people like the sequels, but there are still some people who do like the sequels a lot, and that's fine. But for me, the original trilogy is by far the best Star Wars trilogy. And I don't think that it's really even that close, to be honest. So I'm just going to be taking a look at these three movies and ranking them from worst to best, but not really worst to best because even the worst one isn't actually that bad. And that's where we're going to get started, and that is Return of the Jedi, which is number three. And I don't. There's not much to say, just that this movie isn't quite as good as the first. It's not a bad movie by any standards. I just feel like the first two movies, we see Luke sort of like we see him start off as just a regular kid in this galaxy far away. So not really a regular kid, but by the standards of this galaxy, he was regular. Then we see him turn into a fearsome warrior, or at least he thinks of himself that way. But Yoda and Obi-Wan are very hesitant about this, the way that he thinks of himself. And then he goes to face Vader and he gets his ass kicked, but he comes back stronger. He comes back more prepared. He's the last remainder of the Jedi Order. He's their last hope, and it's just sort of like completing that. It's a great way to end the trilogy, but there's not anything really new going on with Luke or Han or any of these characters really. It's just finishing what they already started, and that's why it's sort of less entertaining to see. Han Solo is not nearly as good as a character as he was in the first two movies because we're not seeing him progressing as a character from the first movie where he's just like a scumbag and he wants to do whatever he wants. In the second movie in the trilogy, where he realized that he loves his friends and that he's willing to sacrifice himself for them. And by then, Han Solo's transformation is complete. So he's not the same character that we saw in the first movie or the second movie, really. Do you understand what I'm saying? He's a completely different person because of how these movies have changed him. And while he is a better person, he's not as interesting to see because there's nothing really going on with him. Also, I figured this movie was actually much, much more boring, excluding the final battle, which is very, very good. It's much more boring than the other ones. I know I'm talking bad about this movie, but I do like this movie. It's not a bad movie. It's just that I'm comparing it to the other two. And that's where I'm going to move on to The Empire Strikes Back, which is my second ranked on this video, and a lot of people put Empire number one, and I'll get to that in a second. But I have it at number two, and it's not because it's a bad movie. I think this is the second best Star Wars movie ever made, and I can't really say bad things about it because there's no reason that this is a worse movie than A New Hope, but there is a reason that A New Hope is better, and I'll get to that when I talk about A New Hope. But for now, let's just talk about Empire. Empire is a very good movie. There's not much more to say. We see Luke's character art in a very, very good way. As I mentioned earlier, he thinks that the Jedi are very strong warriors who kill people and all that stuff. So then he just goes thinking that he can take on the whole entire Empire by himself. But then the Jedi Master that he meets is Yoda, who's not as strong, not as physically capable, but he's very wise in the ways of the Force. And this sort of makes him realize that the Jedi aren't really warriors, they're peacekeepers. And then when he does go on to fight the Empire, he gets his ass kicked and he has to come back for vengeance. Well, not vengeance, it's a bad way to put it. But he has to come back and beat the Empire in a second try with everything that he's learned since then. And he has learned a lot in this movie. Also, we see Darth Vader a lot more in this movie than in A New Hope. And it's pretty important because I think this movie would be pretty bad if the climax was just like, oh yeah, I was your father the whole time, but he was just acting like sort of like a video game villain or a comic book villain. In this movie, you see him a lot. We see what he does. We see how he has the dark side in him. And we see that he's completely evil, but we still see that he's a person. And that way, we're really hit by the twist at the end. And even though he's clearly a very evil person, Luke still has faith in him, that there's some good left in him. And we see that brought out in the Return of the Jedi, which is something that I'm just going to bring up the sequels really quickly. Really quickly. Darth Vader was the most evil guy ever, and Luke still had hope. Luke still believed that he could be redeemed. When it comes to Kylo Ren, he never did that, which is one of the biggest problems with The Last Jedi I have. It's the way that Luke's character has changed too much. I'm fine with changing a character in some ways. If Luke was the exact same as we saw him before, then that would be very bad. But they changed him almost too much in some aspects of Luke. Some aspects of the character just shouldn't be changed ever. So that's just my quick take on it. But this movie's very good. This movie's very good, and if you like Star Wars, then you probably already know that. I would hope so. Let's move on to A New Hope. And I don't know why it's called that now. It's a pretty shitty name. It's hella boring, but it's called that. It used to be called the original Star Wars, and this movie is the best Star Wars movie ever made. It's truly, honest to God, in my opinion, one of the best movies ever made, period. Regardless of anything like that. When I was 6 years old and I saw this movie for the first time, it sort of changed the way. It changed my outlook on life, to an extent at least. This movie is just a complete masterpiece. You see, all the characters are memorable. One of the biggest problems that people have with Rogue One, for example, is that there's too many characters. We don't know them all. But there's the same amount of characters in this movie. Han, Chewie, Leia, Obi-Wan, and Luke. That's 5. That's about the same as the cast of Rogue One, maybe one more in Rogue One. But even after I just watched this movie, I knew who all the characters were. I knew everything about their personalities, what their intentions were. And I just feel like this movie does a phenomenal job of introducing these characters in an interesting way. And showing us this universe, this beautiful universe that these characters live in. This movie is just truly a masterpiece at every single level of filmmaking. The way the characters are introduced, to the timeless effects, the plot is something that was unimaginable at the time period. And it's simple. It's not overly complicated movie. There's no question about what George Lucas wants you to think about this movie. There's good guys, there's bad guys, there's a fight between good and evil, and then good prevails at the end of this one. But then the dark side strikes back, and the light side strikes back at the end. And I think that these movies are something that people read into too much almost, or something that people shouldn't read into. Because these movies are simple, they're not complicated. They're just fun and easy to watch. They have characters that we love. They're just awesome, all-around amazing movies. The stuff that comes afterwards, the TV shows, the video games, the comic books, the other prequels and sequels, spin-off movies, all of that stuff is more complicated. It becomes a large, expanded universe. But no matter what, no matter how deep into the Star Wars lore that you go, no matter how much you love Star Wars, you can watch about it, read about it, any of that. You can still go back to these movies, and they're still enjoyable for anyone, any age. Whether you're a child or an adult or a family member, everyone can enjoy this movie and these 3 movies, really. I mean, they're just very lovable. It's hard to find anyone who doesn't like these movies. Anyways, that's my take on the original trilogy. If you're new to the channel, then consider subscribing, liking the video. I'm gonna start posting a lot more, or trying to at least, because I've been kind of inconsistent, not gonna lie. But yeah, from here on out, I'm just gonna be focusing on stuff that I'm passionate about, like Star Wars, Marvel, stuff like that. I'm gonna make a video talking about season 2 of The Mandalorian soon, as soon as the season 2 ends, whatever my take is on it. And yeah. Oh, also, this is just part 1. I'm gonna make another part 2 talking about the prequels, the sequels, and then I'm gonna make a 4th video. That's gonna be very short, and it's just gonna be me ranking them all. So, like here, I already ranked the 3 of them: Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, and A New Hope. So I'm gonna make a prequels video, a sequels video, and then all of them ranked together. Okay, thanks. Subscribe, like the videos. Bye.